In this video, I'm going to talk about 5 red flags about your periods or cycles, and we're going to talk a little bit about what they might mean, and I'm going to give you next steps to figure out what exactly is going on and what you can do about that. Let's get into the video. So the first red flag, and one of the most common that you're going to come across, is irregular cycles. Maybe you just never know when to expect your period. Maybe you have some cycles that are like 30 days and some cycles that are like 60 days or longer. You just never know when to expect your period. This is not normal, and this is a red flag, as I'm sure you probably understand. So the reason why this is not normal is because it's not just that your period is late. What that is actually indicating is happening is that you are not ovulating regularly. This is closer to the root of the actual problem. The reason why we want to see our cycles very consistent and not outside of that 26 to 35-ish day range is because when you are consistent with your periods, it reflects that you are probably ovulating, and you are probably ovulating regularly. This would indicate that your hormones are doing what they need to be doing, and that anatomically things are probably working to allow ovulation to be happening. Your uterine lining is being built up properly. On the flip side, when we are having these irregular cycles, then we know, okay, I'm not ovulating normally, or I might not even be ovulating at all. Now, why do I say this? It is possible for you to get your period without ovulating. You could be bleeding, but it's not a true period unless you ovulated that past cycle. So if you're bleeding and you didn't ovulate, it's a withdrawal bleed or a breakthrough bleed because your hormones can't keep the uterine lining in place, it breaks down, and then you bleed. So we talked a little bit about why we don't want this to happen and why it's a red flag, because we want our body to be ovulating. So let's talk a little bit more about why we don't want that and what it could potentially mean. So you understand this is not good because it means we are potentially not ovulating or not ovulating regularly. And that's bad because if at any point we want to get pregnant, we need to be ovulating in order for that to happen. And it's also important because ovulation is reflecting that our body is healthy, that our hormones are working together to make things happen. So if ovulation isn't happening, there's also other things that aren't going to be happening hormonally or physically that are really important. It is important for our hormones to kind of go through the cascade of events that they go through. It's important for our uterine lining to be built up and then maintained and then shed regularly. It's important for our whole body because understand that our hormones are not just targeting like our uterine lining or something. They're affecting our whole body. They're affecting our skin, they're affecting our brain, our moods, our feelings, our digestion. It affects everything, okay? We want them to be doing what they're supposed to be doing so that our whole body will be in its prime, okay? And reproduction is a luxury. If you know anything about livestock, animals, we talk about that. So it's gonna be the first thing to go, and it's indicating there could be a problem. There could be a nutritional problem, there could be a physiological problem, a hormonal problem. So let's talk more about that. What could this be indicating? One of the first things that you're probably gonna be told or probably think that maybe the issue would be PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, because this is a pretty common symptom of it. You aren't ovulating regularly. With PCOS, often on an ultrasound, you're gonna see all of these follicles that are enlarged. So the follicles grow, but they don't burst, they don't release. And so you don't ovulate. Therefore, your periods might be missing, they might be really late or show up earlier, whatever, due to PCOS. And then another one is having a hormonal imbalance. Because like we said, we need our hormones to be doing a pretty specific thing in order for ovulation to happen. We need estrogen to be rising and rise rapidly, and it needs to get to a certain threshold and stay there for a certain amount of time in order to trigger ovulation to happen. So if that's not happening, then we are not going to ovulate, and then we are going to have irregular cycles. So it's definitely going to be helpful to look into what's going on hormonally. One of the ways we can do this, of course, is going to your doctor and getting your blood work done. If you go to your doctor, your OBGYN with these issues, they should definitely look into, okay, what's happening hormonally throughout your cycle. Another way that this could be done, because it is expensive to get blood work done, it is expensive to go to the doctor. One thing that I've been using, actually a couple things, I have used the Anido, which is a fertility monitor that connects to your phone. It uses your urine and it gives you the values for LH, FSH, estrogen, and progesterone. And then another one that I use is the Mira. I like that one better. I trust the results more because of the technology. It's more comparable to what labs actually use. So I do trust the Mira more, and I've been really impressed with it. And I do have a code for that, which will be linked in the description if you want 17% off. Those are some options to help you figure out if you have any hormonal issues. Something else that I'm going to talk about right here, and this applies for all 5 of these issues, is finding a good OBGYN and doing it through the FEM website. That's what I recommend. If you look up FEM Health, it should pop up, and I'll put on screen what it will look like and how you can get to like looking for both a telehealth, like you can do a virtual call with a doctor on there, or you can find if there's anyone in your area through here. Basically what FEM is, it's where I did my certification for fertility education, and their doctors through here, they've learned a lot through FEM about working with their cycles, looking at what is actually happening in their cycles. So if you chart your cycles and symptoms, it's really going to benefit you when you're going to someone through here. They have a lot of people all over the place, so definitely search there, see if you can find someone. Finding a good OBGYN is an absolutely crucial step to getting answers. And unfortunately, it's not as easy as just going to your nearest OBGYN and saying, hey, I have irregular periods, I have this, I have that. Because often you're just gonna be like put on birth control, symptoms are dismissed. It's an unfortunate reality of women's medicine. It's really lacking, okay? I think there are definitely a lot of good doctors out there, but not every doctor is going to handle things in the best way. That's just how it is, which is really unfortunate. So definitely advocate for yourself. It's okay if you don't stick with the first OBGYN you go to. You're not going to hurt their feelings. If that's just not a good fit for you, then it's not a good fit. Just keep looking until you find someone who is willing to put in the work to help you get answers and heal your body. So that is a big tip for anyone. Again, any of these 5 symptoms, no matter what you have, please find a good OBGYN and you can work with someone there. You can also work with me as a fertility educator. I can help you track your cycle. I can help you track symptoms and chart things like your cervical fluid observations, which actually tell you a lot about your hormones. Tracking your periods to see if maybe you have a heavy period and you don't even realize it, or you have too light of a period. Is your period within normal ranges? Are your cycle lengths within normal ranges? I can help you with all of that too. And I will also have linked in the description of this video so you can sign up. You could sign up for a free 15-minute session to see if it would be helpful for you. And you can also sign up for a 40-minute session. It's just $35 and we go into depth. All of those tools, I'm gonna just put that right here. It applies to all of these. Let's move on to number 2. So red flag number 2 with your cycles is painful periods. If you have stuck around at all, you know this is something I talk about a lot and I'm very passionate about. This is something I personally struggle with, and yes, it is a red flag. Yes, it is a problem. It doesn't matter if your mother or your teacher or your sister or whoever told you that painful periods are just normal. That does not make it true. We're learning more and more about women's health, and we're learning more and more about what is actually healthy and what is not. Now, pain with your periods is very common. A lot of women deal with it, but that is not reflective of peak health, okay? So there's a difference between something being really common and something being really healthy, right? We don't want to just deal with a bunch of things and say they're okay because everyone deals with them. That doesn't mean that we should be miserable just because it's common. That's not a good enough answer. I want to just validate you in that, like, you should not be experiencing this. And yes, there is an answer. There is some reason that is causing this. It's not just because you have a uterus and you're a woman, deal with it. Nope, that's not the answers we give around here. We give you real answers. We don't want to see really painful periods because it's indicating to us something is going on. There could be something structurally, anatomically, that can be a really common issue because if you have like fibroids, polyps, endometriosis, all of these types of things are like anatomical, issues that are causing the pain. So that's definitely a reason. Endometriosis is really something that you don't want to dismiss and you really want to dig into if painful periods is something that you struggle with a lot, especially if there's a lot of pain, if you're having pain throughout your cycles and not just during your period. That's definitely something that we need to pay attention to, we need to keep track of and take seriously. One thing that could contribute to period pain is nutrition. If we have any sort of deficiencies, like with potassium, magnesium, calcium as well, those are all really important for the muscles to contract and relax. Now, another thing is prostaglandins. If you have too many prostaglandins and they're kind of just going crazy in there, that's going to cause more cramping. That's going to cause period poops, if you've heard of that, kind of diarrhea, really loose stool, because little prostaglandins are going around. They're kind of like hormones and they are causing the cramping. And we do need some prostaglandins because we do need our uterus to cramp and shed our uterine lining. We need that to happen. But when there's too many prostaglandins, it's going to be causing too much cramping, more than normal, and also affecting our bowels and stuff like that, which we don't want. If this is you, if you deal with painful periods, as far as next steps, remember again, make sure you find a good OBGYN. That's first and foremost, so you can go to them and bring this up. Second, once again, you can talk to me, of course. Third, I would recommend looking into your nutrition. If there's anything that you can work on, make sure you're getting potassium, magnesium, calcium. And of course, let's not overlook just eating enough in general, eating enough protein, all of that stuff. Even, look into seeing a nutritionist to really help you out in this area because nutrition is very important. Like I said, reproduction is a luxury and it's the first thing to go. So if there's any nutritional deficiencies, even if it's minor, it could definitely affect our cycles and our reproductive state. Let's move on to number 3. The third red flag is heavy periods. If you experience really heavy periods, then you probably are aware, oh, this is not normal. So you probably don't even need me to tell you that this is not normal, but just in case you do, heavy periods are not normal. They may be fairly common, but once again, this is a sign that something is wrong. Something that needs to be mentioned here is, how do we even know if we're having heavy periods? This was always really elusive to me when my doctor would be like, do you experience heavy bleeding, heavy periods? I'd be like, I don't really know because I only know what happens for me. I don't know what is normal. And it was never really described to me. I'm gonna just give you a couple of things that will tell you automatically if you have heavy periods. And this is something, if you want to talk about more, we can definitely cover this in our one-on-one sessions. I talk a lot about, okay, here's the healthy range of period lengths, cycle lengths, bleeding, all of that kind of stuff we can talk about in the one-on-one sessions. If your period lasts for more than 7 days, you probably just have a heavy period automatically, just because if you're bleeding for that long, you're probably losing more blood than you should. If you have to be changing your pad every 2 hours or less, especially if you're using more than 5 pads a day. Also, if you are experiencing clots that are like the size of a quarter or larger. So those are all kind of some tools to help you out. So if you do fall under this category, you experience heavy bleeding, let's talk about why this is not normal. Once again, it might be pretty obvious. Well, of course, we don't want to be losing a lot of blood. This puts us at risk of, having low iron, being anemic in that way because of just losing too much blood. And then that brings us to what could be causing this. Once again, we never want to overlook the fact that there could be physiological, anatomical reasons for the bleeding, such as endometriosis, fibroids, polyps could be physically causing your uterine lining to be bleeding more than normal. Another thing that we want to look at is you could be experiencing hormone imbalances. You could be experiencing high estrogen for longer than normal. Estrogen is building up your uterine lining, it's proliferating it. So if we're exposed to estrogen for longer than a normal healthy amount of time or higher levels than normal, you're going to have a thicker uterine lining. Therefore, there's going to be more being shed. There's always deeper to look too. If you do figure out you have a hormonal imbalance, we want to look at why that is. If your body is having problems excreting the estrogen. There's all kinds of things. Okay, I don't believe in like liver detoxes, but there's definitely ways that we could support our liver to do its job. So that gets into, again, like nutrition and all that kind of stuff. Red flag number 4 is a short luteal phase. You might not know what your luteal phase is, so let's really quickly get that out of the way. So your luteal phase is essentially the time between day of ovulation and when your next period starts. It's roughly that last half of your cycle. That's the luteal phase. So when this part of your cycle is short, which would be under 9 days, it's telling us something. We don't want a short luteal phase because of what it means. It means that progesterone levels are not staying elevated for long enough. Progesterone levels are supposed to increase during your luteal phase. This is because we've got our follicle that pops open and releases the egg during ovulation. That follicle then is transformed into the corpus luteum, and that corpus luteum produces progesterone. So progesterone is only being produced during this luteal phase. Now we want progesterone because progesterone is really important for maintaining the uterine lining, keeping it there. It also builds the uterine lining in its own way and really prepares it for pregnancy. So this is really, really important if at any time you want to get pregnant. It's also really important if you don't want to just be bleeding when you shouldn't, because it is important for maintaining that uterine lining. So if you're experiencing a short luteal phase, you may also be experiencing spotting, very light bleeding leading up to your period actually starting. That's also a red flag that's kind of connected to this. And PMS, which is number 5, is kind of connected to this. PMS is actually talked about as if it's just a normal thing that happens to everyone and is fine. It's actually indicative of a problem. It's telling us something's not quite right. Now, if you're just a little more sensitive than normal, you have some mood swings, but it's like nothing crazy, that's fine. Like I said, our hormones affect everything, so we're gonna see that. However, if your PMS is really bad, I'm talking you don't feel like yourself, your mood swings are crazy, you're crying at everything, maybe you have a lot of breast tenderness, this is telling us that potentially our progesterone levels are too low or they're dropping too soon. So this is all indicating a potential progesterone deficiency, but we always want to look deeper into that because in order for progesterone to be produced, we need to have healthy ovulation. That is all for this video. I hope this was helpful for you guys. If there's any other information that you want to know, I encourage you to check out the rest of my videos because you may get some questions answered there. And go over to my Instagram if you want to connect over there. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions. You can comment, you can email me, you can message me on Instagram, whatever. I just want to help you. This is my passion. I love to talk about this and I love to help women to just get to know their bodies and get answers and feel better. Once again, thank you so much for watching this video. Check out the links in the description for everything that I talked about in this video and some things that I didn't talk about in the video. And I hope you have a great day and a great week. Bye.